All right, here we go. We're gonna read the Bat and the Weasels. You think you guys are gonna like this one. A bat who fell upon the ground and was caught by a weasel pleaded to be spared his life. The weasel refused, saying that he was by nature the enemy of all birds. The bat assured him that he was not a bird, but a mouse, and thus was set free. Shortly afterwards, the bat again fell to the ground and was caught by another weasel, whom he likewise entreated not to eat him. The weasel said that he had a special hostility to mice. The bat assured him that he was not a mouse, but a bat, and thus a second time escaped.
Oh, this one I really liked reading when I was a young man. It's called, we used to get giggles in Mrs. Gilmore's class for reading this one. Because it had a little curse word in there. The ass and the grasshopper. An ass, having heard some grasshoppers chirping, was highly enchanted, and desiring to possess the same charms of melody, demanded what sort of food they lived on to give them such beautiful voices. They replied, the dew. The ass resolved that he would live only upon dew, and in a short time died of hunger. That's a sad thing that happened to the ass.
The Serpent and the Eagle. A serpent and an eagle were struggling with each other in deadly conflict. The serpent had the advantage and was about to strangle the bird. A countryman saw them and, running up, loosened the coil of the serpent and let the eagle go free. The serpent, irritated at the escape of his prey, injected his poison into the drinking horn of the countryman. The rustic, ignorant of his danger, was about to drink when the eagle struck his hand with his wing, and seizing the drinking horn in his talons, carried it aloft.
The Viper and the File. A lion, entering the workshop of a smith, sought from the tools the means of satisfying his hunger. He more particularly addressed himself to a file, and asked of him the favor of a meal. The file replied, "You must indeed be a simple-minded fellow if you expect to get anything from me, who am accustomed to take from everyone and never to give anything in return."
The Mischievous Dog. A dog used to run up quietly to the heels of everyone he met, and to bite them without notice. His master suspended a bell about his neck so that the dog might give notice of his presence wherever he went. Thinking it a mark of distinction, the dog grew proud of his bell and went tinkling it all over the marketplace. One day an old hound said to him, "Why do you make such an exhibition of yourself? That bell you carry is not, believe me, any order of merit, but on the contrary, a mark of disgrace, a public notice to all men to avoid you as an ill-mannered dog."
No, I haven't seen any of Aesop's books, but I sure am waiting for the television show. Oh, like The King's Son and the Painted Lion. A king, whose only son was fond of material exercises, had a dream in which he was warned that his son would be killed by a lion. Afraid the dream should prove true, he built for his son a pleasant palace and adorned its walls for his amusement with all kinds of life-size animals, among which was the picture of a lion. When the young prince saw this, his grief at being thus confined burst out afresh, and standing near the lion, he said, "Oh, you most detestable of animals! Through a lying dream of my father's, which he saw in his sleep, I am shut up on your account in this palace, as if I had been a girl. What shall I now do to you?" With these words, he stretched out his hand toward a thorn tree, meaning to cut a stick from its branches so that he might beat the lion. But one of the tree's prickles pierced his finger and caused great pain and inflammation, so that the young prince fell down in a fainting fit. A violent fever suddenly set in, from which he died not many days later. I don't like this Aesop. That's terrible.
Thank you very much,
happy to be here. Where is the... You wanted me to read this fable and this introduction statement into this microphone here. Can you hear me okay? Let me get my glasses. I don't understand the reference of the introduction statement. A television show. Okay. No, I've never seen Battlestar Galactica. I played Galaga in the 80s. Never saw the television show. The horse and... Oh, I'm sorry. Supposed to read the introduction statement. Attention, fleet. This is the Admiral. I am going to be reading at this time Aesop's Fables. You will listen up. This is very important. The horse and his rider. A horse soldier took the utmost pains with his charger. As long as the war lasted, he looked upon him as his fellow helper in all emergencies, and fed him carefully with hay and corn. But when the war was over, he only allowed him chaff to eat, and made him carry heavy loads of wood, subjecting him to much slaverish drudgery and ill treatment. War was again proclaimed, however, and when the trumpet summoned him to his standard, the soldier put on his charger its military trappings and mounted, being clad in his heavy coat of mail. The horse fell down straight away under the weight, no longer equal to the burden, and said to his master, "You must now go to the war on foot, for you have transformed me from horse to an ass, and how can you expect that I can again turn in a moment from an ass to a horse?" So say we all.
I'm going to read The Traveler and His Dog. A traveler, about to set out on a journey, saw his dog stand at the door stretching himself. He asked him sharply, "Why do you stand there gaping? Everything is ready but you, so come with me instantly." The dog, wagging his tail, replied, "Oh, master, I'm quite ready. It is you for whom I am waiting."
The wolf in sheep's clothing. Once upon a time, a wolf resolved to disguise his appearance in order to secure food more easily. Encased in the skin of a sheep, he pastured with the flock, deceiving the shepherd by his costume. In the evening he was shut up by the shepherd in the fold. The gate was closed, and the entrance made thoroughly secure. But the shepherd, returning to the fold during the night to obtain meat for the next day, mistakenly caught up the wolf instead of a sheep, and killed him instantly.
The Lamb and the Wolf. A wolf pursued a lamb which fled for refuge to a certain temple. The wolf called out to him and said, "The priest will slay and sacrifice if he should catch you." To which the lamb replied, "It would be better for me to be sacrificed in the temple than to be eaten by you."
Young men, listen up. We are going to read The Ass and the Shadow. This story is very important for you to understand and memorize, for it will save your life one day. Do you hear me? I say again, do you hear me? The Ass and the Shadow. A traveler hired an ass to convey him to a distant place. The day being intensely hot, and the sun shining in its strength, the traveler stopped to rest and sought shelter from the heat under the shadow of the ass. As this afforded only protection for one, and as the traveler and the owner of the ass both claimed it, a violent dispute arose between them as to which of them had the right to the shadow. The owner maintained that he had let the ass only and not the shadow. The traveler asserted that he had, with the hire of the ass, hired his shadow also. The quarrel proceeded from words to blows, and while the men fought, the ass galloped off. Young men, you hear me? When you fight, the ass will run away. Easy as that. The Manslayer.
pursued by the relations of the man whom he murdered. On his reaching the river Nile, he saw a lion on its bank, and being fearfully afraid, climbed up a tree. He found the serpent in the upper branches of the tree, and again, being greatly alarmed, he threw himself into the river, where a crocodile caught him and ate him. Thus the earth, the air, and the water alike refused to shelter a murderer.
The Dog and the Cook. A rich man gave a great feast, at which he invited many of his friends and acquaintances. His dog availed himself of the occasion to invite a stranger dog, a friend of his, saying, "My master gives a feast, and there is always much food remaining. Come and sup with me tonight." The dog, thus invited, went at the hour appointed, and seeing the preparation of so grand an entertainment, said in the joy of his heart, "How glad I am that I came. I do not often get such a chance as this. I will take care and eat enough to last me both today and tomorrow." While he was congratulating himself and wagging his tail to convey his pleasure to his friend, the cook saw him moving about among the dishes, and seizing him by the fore and hind paws, bundled him without ceremony and out of the window. He fell with force upon the ground and limped away, howling dreadfully. His yelling soon attracted other street dogs, who came up to him and inquired how he enjoyed his supper. He replied, "Why, to tell you the truth, I drank so much wine I remember nothing. I do not know how I got out of the house."
The Thirsty Pigeon. A pigeon, oppressed by excessive thirst, saw a goblet of water painted on a signboard. Not supposing it to be only a picture, she flew towards it with a loud whir, and unwittingly dashed against the signboard, jarring herself terribly. Having broken her wings by the blow, she fell to the ground and was caught by one of the bystanders.
All right, you're going to make me read what again? Oh, come on, man. I don't want to read. I don't want to say that on here. All right. All right, I'm telling you, though, I am doing this under protest. I want my money up front right now. All right, thank you. Are you serious? You really want me to say this? All right. This is from Aesop. Aesop. All right, Aesop. The cock and the jewel. A cock, scratching for food in himself and his hens, found a precious stone and exclaimed, "If your owner had found thee, and not I, he would have taken thee up, and he would have set thee by first estate. But I have found thee for no purpose. I would rather have one barleycorn than all the jewels in the world." So, what you're telling me is that there is a cock who is talking about jewels. All right, I'm done. I'm done here. Get this thing up. Get this microphone off me.
The crow and the sheep. A troublesome crow seated herself on the back of a sheep. The sheep, much against his will, carried her backward and forward for a long time, and at last said, "If you had treated a dog in this way, you would have had your deserts from his sharp teeth." To this the crow replied, "I despise the weak and yield to the strong. I know whom I may bully and whom I must flatter, and I thus prolong my life to a good old age."
A lion was awakened from sleep by a mouse running over his face. Rising up angrily, he caught him and was about to kill him, when the mouse piteously entreated, saying, "If you would only spare my life, I would be sure to repay your kindness." The lion laughed and let him go. It happened shortly after this that the lion was caught by some hunters, who bound him by strong ropes to the ground. The mouse, recognizing his roar, came and gnawed at the rope with his teeth and set him free, exclaiming, "You ridiculed the idea of my ever being able to help you, not expecting to receive from me any repayment of your favor. Now you know that it is possible for even a mouse to confer benefits on a lion."
The Frog's Complaint Against the Sun. Once upon a time, when the sun announced his intention to take a wife, the frogs lifted up their voices in clamor to the sky. Jupiter, disturbed by the noise of their croaking, inquired the cause of their complaint. One of them said, "The sun, now while he is single,
marches up the marsh and compels us to die miserably in our arid homes. What will be our future condition if he should beget other sons?
The Ass and the Charger. An ass congratulated a horse on being so ungrudgingly and carefully provided for, while he himself had scarcely enough to eat, and not even that without hard work. But when war broke out, a heavily armed soldier mounted the horse, and riding him to the charge, rushed into the very midst of the enemy. The horse was wounded and fell dead on the battlefield. Then the ass, seeing all these things, changed his mind and commiserated the horse. The Kid and the Wolf. A kid, returning without protection from the pasture, was pursued by a wolf. Seeing he could not escape, he turned round and said, "I know, friend wolf, that I must be your prey, but before I die I would ask you one favor, that you will play me a tune to which I may dance." The wolf complied, and while he was piping and the kid was dancing, some hounds, hearing the sound, ran up and began chasing the wolf. Turning to the kid, he said, "It is just what I deserve, for I, who am only a butcher, should not have turned piper to please you."
The Mole and his Mother. A mole, a creature blind from birth, once said to his mother, "I'm sure that I can see, mother." In the desire to prove him in his mistake, his mother placed before him a few grains of frankincense and asked, "What is it?" The young mole said, "It is a pebble." His mother exclaimed, "My son, I'm afraid that you are not only blind, but that you have lost your sense of smell."
The Wolf and the Crane. A wolf who had a bone stuck in his throat hired a crane, for a large sum, to put her head into his mouth and draw out the bone. When the crane had extracted the bone and demanded the promised payment, the wolf, grinning and grinding his teeth, exclaimed, "Why, you have surely already had a sufficient recompense in having been permitted to draw out your head in safety from the mouth and jaws of a wolf."
The Two Soldiers and the Robber. Two soldiers traveling together were set upon by a robber. The one fled away, the other stood his ground and defended himself with stout right hand. The robber being slain, the timid companion ran up and drew his sword, and then, throwing back his traveling cloak, said, "I'll at him, and I'll take care he shall learn whom he has attacked." On this, he who had fought with the robber made answer, "I only wish that you would help me just now, even if it had been only with those words, for I should have been the more encouraged, believing them to be true. Now, put up your sword in its sheath, and hold your equally useless tongue, till you can deceive others who do not know you. I indeed, who have experience with what speed you run away, know right well that no dependence can be placed upon your valor." The Rich Man and the Tanner. A rich man lived near a tanner, and not being able to bear the unpleasant smell of the tan yard, he pressed his neighbor to go away. The tanner put off his departure from time to time, saying that he would leave soon. But as he still continued to stay, as time went on, the rich man became accustomed to the smell, and feeling no manner of inconvenience, made no further complaints.
You want me to read another one? I thought we were only supposed to read one. I'll read two. That's fine. Does this one come with an introduction statement? Oh, good. The Lion, Jupiter, and the Elephant. The lion wearied Jupiter with his frequent complaints. "It is true, Jupiter," he said, "that I am gigantic in strength, handsome in shape, and powerful in attack. I have jaws well provided with teeth, and feet furnished with claws, and I lord it over all the beasts of the forest. And what a disgrace it is, that being such as I am, I should be frightened by the crowing of a cock." Jupiter replied, "Why do you blame me without a cause? I have given you all the attributes which I possess myself, and your courage never fails you except in this one instance.
On hearing this, the lion groaned and lamented very much, and reproaching himself with his cowardice, wished that he might die. As these thoughts passed through his mind, he met an elephant and came close to hold a conversation with him. After a time he observed that the elephant shook his ears very often, and he inquired what was the matter and why his ears moved with such a tremor every now and then. Just at that moment, a gnat settled on the head of the elephant, and he replied, "Do you see that little buzzing insect? If it enters my ear, my fate is sealed. I should die presently." The lion said, "Well, since so huge a beast is afraid of a tiny gnat, I will no more complain, nor wish myself dead. I find myself, even as I am, better off than the elephant."
The Hunter and the Woodsman. A hunter, not very bold, was searching for the tracks of a lion. He asked a man felling oaks in the forest if he had seen any marks of his footsteps, or knew where his lair was. "I will," said the man, "at once show you the lion himself." The hunter, turning very pale and chattering with his teeth from fear, replied, "No, thank you. I did not ask that. It is his track only I am in search of, not the lion himself."
Yeah, this one appeals to me right here. The ants and the grasshopper. Such a metaphor for life. Let's do this. The ants were spending a fine winter's day drying grain collected in the summertime. A grasshopper, perishing with famine, passed by and earnestly begged for a little food. The ants inquired of him, "Why did you not treasure up food during the summer?" He replied, "I had not leisure enough. I passed the days in singing." They then said in derision, "If you were foolish enough to sing all the summer, you must dance supperless to bed in the winter." I drink liberal tears. Remember that.
I'm going to read from The Prophet. A wizard, sitting in the marketplace, was telling the fortunes of the passers-by when a person ran up in great haste and announced to him that the doors of his house had been broken open and that all the goods were being stolen. He sighed heavily and hastened away as fast as he could run. A neighbor saw him running and said, "Oh, you fellow there, you say you can foretell the fortunes of others. How is it you could not foresee your own?"
The tortoise and the eagle. A tortoise, lazily basking in the sun, complained to the seabirds of her hard fate, that no one would teach her to fly. An eagle, hovering near, heard her lamentation and demanded what reward she would give him if he would take her aloft and float her in the air. "I will give you," she said, "all the riches of the Red Sea." "I will teach you to fly then," said the eagle, and taking her up into his talons, he carried her almost to the clouds. Suddenly he let her go, and she fell on a lofty mountain, dashing her shell to pieces. The tortoise exclaimed in the moment of death, "I have deserved my present fate, for what had I to do with wings and clouds? Who can with difficulty move about on the earth?"
I've decided, hold on. I'm gonna read The Flea and the Man, because that is so true about society, and it explains it. What, man? Oh, you want me to talk into the microphone, man? I'm sorry about that. This one right here, man. Yeah. All right, man. All right, you're gonna read The Flea and the Man. A man, very much annoyed with a flea, caught him at last and said, "Who are you who dare feed on my limbs and cost me so much trouble in catching you?" The flea replied, "Oh, my dear sir, pray spare my life and destroy me not, for I cannot possibly do you much harm." The man, laughing, replied, "Now you shall certainly die by my own hands, for no evil, whether it be small or large, ought to be tolerated." It's right here in Aesop, man. That's the problem with the government. Right here, man. Aesop knew.
The Partridge and the Fowler. A fowler caught a partridge and was about to kill it. The partridge earnestly begged him to spare his life, saying, "Pray, master, permit me to live, and I will entice many partridges to you in recompense for your mercy to me."
The Fowler replied, I shall now with less scruple take your life, because you are willing to save it at the cost of betraying your friends and relations.
Well, this next story shows a gutter for those little maidens. The widow and her little maidens. A widow who was fond of cleaning had 2 little maidens to wait on her. She was in the habit of waking them early in the morning at cock-crow. The maidens, aggravated by such excessive labor, resolved to kill the cock who roused their mistress so early. When they had done this, they found that they had only prepared themselves with greater troubles, for their mistress, no longer hearing the hour from the cock, woke them up for their work in the middle of the night.
The Panther and the Shepherds. A panther by some mischance fell into a pit. The shepherds discovered him, and some threw sticks at him and pelted him with stones, while others, moved with compassion towards one about to die, even though no one should hurt him, threw in some food to prolong his life. At night they returned home, not dreaming of any danger, but supposing that on the morrow they would find him dead. The panther, however, when he had recruited his feeble strength, freed himself with sudden bound from the pit, and hastened to the den with rapid steps. After a few days he came forth and slaughtered the cattle, and killing the shepherds who had attacked him, raged with angry fury. Then they who had spared his life, fearing for their safety, surrendered to him their flocks and begged only for their lives. To them the panther made this reply, I remember alike those who sought my life with stones, and those who gave me food aside. Therefore your fears I return as an enemy only to those who injured me.
The Thrush and the Fowler. A thrush was feeding on a myrtle tree and did not move from it because its berries were so delicious. A fowler observed her staying so long in one spot, and having well bird-limed his reeds, caught her. The thrush, being at the point of death, exclaimed, O foolish creature that I am! For the sake of a little pleasant food, I have deprived myself of my life.
The frogs asking for a king. The frogs, grieved at having no established ruler, sent ambassadors to Jupiter entreating for a king. Perceiving their simplicity, he cast down a huge log into the lake. The frogs were terrified at the splash occasioned by its fall, and hid themselves in the depths of the pool. But as soon as they realized that the huge log was motionless, they swam again to the top of the water, dismissed their fears, climbed up, and began squatting on it in contempt. After some time they began to think themselves ill-treated in the appointment of so inert a ruler, and sent a second deputation to Jupiter to pray that he would set over them another sovereign. He then gave them an eel to govern them. When the frogs discovered his easy good nature, they sent yet a third time to Jupiter to beg him to choose for them still another king. Jupiter, displeased with all their complaints, sent a heron, who preyed upon the frogs day by day, till there were none left to croak upon the lake.